The court is back in session. Before the chamber gives the floor to the deputy co-prosecutor, okay, and before now I give the floor to the deputy co-prosecutor to put question to this witness.
Merci, bon après-midi.
Thank you and good afternoon, Mr. President. Before the break, witness, you said that at a point in time in the region, there were many Vietnamese families that lived there before 1975. But you said that you did not know whether they all left at some point. Do you remember during which period you did not see all of those Vietnamese families in the region, apart from the family of Chanta and his grandparents?
Answer. It was from 1975 or 1976.
Et lorsque ces familles vietnamiennes étaient là,
and while those Vietnamese families were there, how could they be distinguished from Khmer families? By what criteria could you determine whether they were Vietnamese families or Khmer families?
Witness, you are asking about the Vietnamese and Khmer languages. In fact, I saw a few families of Vietnamese, and later on I did not know where they were going to.
est-il correct de dire qu'ils avaient...
Is it correct to say that they had their own language and their own traditions before 1975? And I am referring to the Vietnamese.
Answer. Regarding the Vietnamese tradition and customs, at that time the tradition and the customs of Vietnamese was quite the same as those of Khmer people.
Bien, tout à l'heure, vous m'avez dit également...
Very well. A while ago you said that you were in your unit working and did not know what happened in the village, including whether instructions had been given to the village chief to identify Vietnamese in the region. With the leave of the chamber, I would like to show you the names of a witness in a record of interview E3/7685, and that is witness 2 TCW 846. And what I would like to do is to simply show you the name of that person, and I would request you not to utter the name of that person aloud if you do know that person. Mr. President, can I show the witness the first page of this record of interview, E3/7685?
President, yes, you can provide it to the witness. But first I would like to know whether Mr. Witness can read and write. Witness, can you read and write? Witness, yes, I can, but not well. President, so Mr. Co-prosecutor, you can provide the document to the witness. And Mr. Run, please read that text to the witness.
Monsieur le
Witness, may I request you not to pronounce the name of that person? Do you know that person? Do you know that witness who lives in Yin village?
School.
Answer, yes, I know that person.
ខ្ញុំបាទស្គាល់
Yes, I do.
Est-ce que vous le connaissiez déjà?
Did you know him during the period of democratic Cambodia?
Answer, yes, I did. I have known that person since the democratic Cambodia.
Je voudrais lire un extrait de ce procès verbal.
I would like to read an extract of this transcript, E3/7685, page 2 in French, 2 in English and command. The question put to the person is as follows: regarding the persons who were executed, do you know what their nationalities were? Answer. That is the answer by that witness. I heard that they were Vietnamese. At the time when all those people were assembled, the village chief had statistics. He told them that they were being sent for studies. End of quote. And the next page in French, page 4, in English, page 5, and the question is as follows. The village chairman who had a statistical list of the Vietnamese, did he have orders from the upper level? And the answer by the witness was there were orders from the upper level. I would like to know what the witness said regarding the existence of lists and statistics concerning persons of Vietnamese origin. I would like to know whether this reminds you of anything, or you confirm that you never heard or saw a list established for Vietnamese persons in the region.
ខ្ញុំមិន
Answer, I do not know on that a particular point. Mic is not activated.
Toujours durant la même période.
Still during the same period, and before we talk about what happened at the Sak Pagoda specifically, between 1975 and 1978 in Ying village, in your unit of cooperatives or within the commune, did you attend any meetings with the local authorities?
Answer, no, I never attended any meetings. Since at the time I was in charge of economics in the cooperative. I was tasked with finding fish at the river.
ប្រជុំមាន
I did not know whether there were meetings held at the time.
Bien, j'en viens alors.
Very well. Then let us talk about Sak Pagoda. In 1978, was that pagoda surrounded by a fence? And if so, can you describe to us that fence, if it did exist?
មាន
Answer, yes. There was a fence surrounding that pagoda.
Est-ce que cette clôture était une clôture en...
Was that fence in concrete, or it was built with other materials?
Answer, the fence was built out of crack or wood.
Est-ce qu'on pouvait voir à travers cette clôture?
Could anyone see through that fence? And if yes, could you see both sides of the pagodas? Or again, were there any sides of the pagoda which could not be viewed if you were looking through the fence?
ទិមសម័យ
Later on, some parts of the fence were built out of concrete. In that period, the fence was made out of wood. Now it is in concrete.
Et comme elle était en bois, est-ce
And since it was built in wood, could anyone within the premises see buildings within the premises of that pagoda?
អាចមើល
Answer: yes, we could see from the outside. There were cracks, there were holes that we can look through, and from outside we could see the temple within the pagoda.
Tout à l'heure, vous avez dit que certains bâtiments avaient été détruits.
A while ago you said that some buildings had been destroyed, or rather that the statues in the pagoda had been demolished. You also said that all that was left was the monks' houses. Was there a library housing sacred books within the pagoda?
ក្នុងវត្ត
Answer: yes, there was house right or a library hall in the pagoda.
មានបន្ទប់គេ
And there were halls housing those sacred books.
Et quelle était la taille ou les dimensions de ce
And what was the size or the dimensions of the building in which the sacred books were kept? Can you give us an idea of the dimensions of that building?
បណ្ដោយ
And concerning the library hall, it was 7 meters long, and rather it was 7 meters wide and 10 meters long. And for height, it was about 3 to 4 meters.
Est-ce que c'était un bâtiment à étage ou
Was it a story building or an ordinary house without any stories?
It was an ordinary house on the ground. It was not a stilled house.
est-ce qu'on pouvait voir ce bâtiment depuis l'extérieur?
Could anyone see that building from outside of the pagoda, particularly the northern and eastern sides of the pagoda?
Answer: yes, we could see from the south, east, and north direction, but we were not able to see the library from the west direction since it was blocked by monk cells or houses.
Tout à l'heure, vous avez parlé déjà
A while ago, you already mentioned repeatedly that people were executed at the Sak Pagoda, particularly the family of Chanta and his grandparents who are of Vietnamese origin. I would like you to briefly tell the chamber what you saw as regards those executions and during what period those executions were carried out?
Answer. Regarding the matter, it took place at around 6 or 7 in the evening. That the execution started from 6 or 7 p.m. and it lasted until 10 p.m.
Est-ce que vous savez si les autres personnes
Do you know whether the other persons executed at the Sak Pagoda, apart from Chanta's family, were also Vietnamese or not?
បាទ
Answer, yes, they were Vietnamese. The Vietnamese were killed.
et comment avez-vous appris qu'il s'agissait de Vietnamiens?
And how did you know that they were Vietnamese?
Answer. I know they were Vietnamese since they spoke with accents. They had different speaking manners from that of Khmer.
Est-ce que vous les avez entendus parler?
Did you hear them talk while the executions were being carried out at the Sak Pagoda? Could you make out their accent?
I heard at the time the screaming because of the beating.
អើតមើលទៅ
And because of the screaming, I was trying to look at what was happening, and I could see that the execution taking place.
Est-ce que vous avez su ou est-ce que vous avez appris donc
Did you know or get to know where those Vietnamese were brought from? From which cooperative, from which village, from which commune were they brought?
ខ្ញុំមិនដឹង
Answer. I do not know on this point. I noticed that these Vietnamese people were placed in the library hall, and I could hear them talking.
Concernant la période exacte,
As regards the exact period of those events, do you remember in what year those people were assembled in the Sak Pagoda?
Answer. It was in 1975 or 1976.
5
75 or 76.
je voudrais simplement vous rappeler ce que vous avez déjà.
I would like to remind you of what you told the investigators some years ago. It's document E3/7768, or rather 7778, and it is the second answer you gave in this record of interview, and this is what you said. One day, perhaps in 1978, when I heard the screaming of people, I went to stealthily see with Sung what was happening, and I saw the Khmer Rouge killing people on the southeast side of the pagoda, outside of the fence. So you did say that that was in 1978, approximately. Does this refresh your memory?
ជាបន្ទាប់
Answer. It was in 1975, 76 or 77. The execution took place a few times from 1975 up to that year. I noticed that there was execution 2 times. So what can I say about that?
Il n'y a pas de problème, je vous demande.
Don't worry about that. All I'm asking of you is to give us the approximate time when those executions you witnessed were carried out. Perhaps it would be easier for us to go in the opposite direction. Sir, please wait. Approximately, how long after the arrival of how long before the arrival of the Vietnamese in 1979 did you witness the executions at the Sak Pagoda?
ឆ្នាំ
I saw the execution taking place in 1977, and it continued up until 1978.
Je voudrais lire un autre extrait.
I would like to read out to you another extract by a witness from Yin's village, document E3/7686. And the French page is 0033 2891 up to 92. In English, 002754 06 and 07, and in Khmer 002216 20 and 21. Now, witness. This is a witness named Loin Kun. Loin is spelled as L-A-U-N-H, and Kun, K-H-U-N. That person was in Yin village. It says that the executions in the Sak Pagoda were carried out in August 1978, and in this record of interview, she refers to the execution of her husband called Chun, C-H-U-N, and her mother-in-law, Nyao, N-H-A, and her brother-in-law, Kia, K-E-A, her sister-in-law, Hon, and her husband, Chai, as well as their 3 children. That is Han's 3 children. 3 little children aged a week and 2 years and 3 years. And she says in this record of interview that all of them were led away and executed for the simple reason that the in-laws of those persons were Vietnamese. Do you remember these persons, a person called Loin Kum and the family, whose family members I have mentioned, I have named?
Answer: yes, I did. I knew the person by the name Loin Kun.
Cette personne situe donc ces événements.
That person says that the event occurred only a few months before the arrival of the Vietnamese in Cambodia in January 1979. And you did say that those executions were carried out in 1977 and 1978. In August, that is 4 to 5 months before the arrival of the Vietnamese in 1979, would that ring a bell to you?
Answer: yes, I can recall some things else. Vietnamese were smashed and killed one after another. The execution took place twice.
Est-ce que vous savez,
Do you know, or did you learn that the members of that family of Vietnamese origin, the Husband Kun, Niao, sister-in-law, Chai, and the 3 children, did you hear that all those people were themselves executed at the Sakt Pagoda?
Answer. They were killed during the first process, that is the first stage.
bon, je n'insiste pas, mais ce témoin a bien dit.
I wouldn't insist, but the witness said that it was indeed in August 1978. That is when the executions were carried out. The family of Loin Kun, did it have any kinship ties, if ever, with Chanta's family, Takut and Yema?
Answer. I do not know whether they had any ties with those people. I knew the person by the name Loin Kun, as I said. Once again, I knew this person.
មិនបានជាសួរនឿមថា
I did not bother asking that person Loin Kun in detail about his background, and personally I knew that person Loin Kun.
Vous avez déjà abondamment parlé.
You have spoken at length about the arrest and executions of Chanta and his grandparents. Do you know how Chanta was led to the Sakt Pagoda? Was any reason given to him to convince him to go to that pagoda? And did they tell him what was going to happen there?
Answer. They did not tell and said anything. I heard a villager say that Janta was taken for re-education. In fact, after that, Janta disappeared. After a few days, we realized that Janta disappeared. A few days later, there were bodies remaining out of the pits, since perhaps the pit could not accommodate all the bodies.
Est-ce que vous avez...
Did you then see Chanta's body outside of the pits, or did you witness his execution?
Answer. I did not go there to see whether Janta's body was outside of the pit. I was about 30 meters away from the pit, from the body, and at that time I was so scared that left me so frightened, and I ran back home.
What I wanted to know was if you had seen Chanta or his grandparents being detained or taken to Wat Sa and then being executed there.
I saw her dead bodies. I was frightened, then I ran back home. I was so frightened when I saw it, and I ran back home.
Est-ce que vous avez vu dans quel état
Did you see in what state the body was in? Was there anything that struck you when you saw the body? in terms of traces of blows and that might have been on that body?
និយាយពី
I was so frightened after I saw that, and I did not think of anything else but running toward my house. I was running very, very fast to get back home
ឃើញហេតុការណ៍
after I witnessed that horrible event.
Bon, je vais revenir.
Well, I'll get back to that later. Now I would like, well, you said earlier, I'm sorry that you heard cries coming from the pagoda and that had led you to go see what was going on. How long did the people who were taken to the pagoda stay on site? Did they stay there for several days, or only for one day, or only for one night, or for several nights?
They were brought to the pagoda in late afternoon, and they were not killed at that point in time. And when I returned home, I heard the screamings, so then I discreetly take a look, and that's when I saw the execution unfolding before my eyes. So I and Sin Sung then ran back home.
Before you witnessed the executions, you said that these people who had been taken there at the end of the afternoon had been detained in the library, if I'm not mistaken. So was it possible for these people who had been taken to Waksa to escape from the building where they were locked up?
Because of the situation, I ran back home, and in the evening I heard the screamings, and I heard the sounds of beatings. So then I decided to secretly have a look, and that's when I saw the beating and the killing that was happening.
លីសូសំរែកស្រែកហ្នឹងបាន
Let me repeat, I returned to have a look because of the screamings that I heard.
D'accord. Les victimes qui étaient...
Fine. The victims who were beaten up and executed, had it been possible for them to escape from the pagoda to avoid the fate that was awaiting them?
President witness, please hold on, and Council Copper, you have the floor.
I object to this question, Mr. President. This is inviting the witness to speculate. He couldn't possibly know anything about whether people who were detained had any possibility to escape, yes or no. So I object.
Je vais simplement...
Well, then I will rephrase the question, witness. Witness, did you see if the people who were taken to be executed were escorted by people who were armed?
Those who escorted them were armed. However, those people were executed with a club, a bamboo club, not with any gun. But the people who escorted them to the temple had weapons, had guns.
Now, I turn to the moment when you observed or witnessed these executions. You said that you were with your friend Sing Soon. So did you arrive there with him, and did you leave that site with him at the same moment?
President, please hold on, witness.
Mr. President, the witness has been able in the last 25 minutes to continuously contradict himself. First he said on two occasions that he didn't see executions. Now again he saw executions. Then he saw people in the library. He's now making the assumption that these people who were in the library and were shouting were probably also executed. It's full of holes right now, so just taking the part that prosecution is interested in. What?
You're testifying counsel. I mean, you're summing up the evidence. You can ask all the questions the prosecution will not ask.
Fine.
President, Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may continue your line of questioning, and Counsel Copper, your time will come after the conclusion of the session by the co-prosecutors and the lead co-lawyers. And when your turn comes, you can put all those questions for clarification to the witness. And before I hand the floor to the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, in fact, the greffier already received a photocopy of the identification card of the witness, and copies will be provided to the parties, and the original ID will be handed back to the witness. Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may resume.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I will take the previous objection as an attempt to influence the witness. Of course, he said people had been executed. So let me get back to my question. So did you arrive there on site at your observation station where you saw these executions with Sin Sung? And did you leave that place with him at the same time too?
The thing is that before they were killed, they were brought in late afternoon and placed in the library hall. And that happened around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And in the evening, I heard the screamings, and then I decided to go and have a look. And that was the reason I went to have a look. It's the screamings. And Sin Sung was with me when we went there together. Then we heard the screamings from the execution, and then we were so frightened and we ran back home. And next morning, we went to see the pagoda again, and in the library hall it was empty. There was nobody there. And then we saw dead bodies fill up the pit. And that's what happened. I don't know what else to tell you. I can tell you only to the limit of what I saw at the time.
Merci.
Thank you. Witness, please listen carefully to the question. I know that you described several times what you saw, but now we're trying to put questions in a gradual and systematic way. So when you arrived there on site and you saw the executions, had the executions already started? Was the process already ongoing?
Yes. And please listen to me carefully. Those people were brought in late afternoon and in late evening, or you can say at night time, at about 6 or 7 p.m. They were taken out from the library hall and executed. And I heard the screamings of those people, so I decided to leave my house to go and have a look. And yes, the execution took place. And next morning when I returned, the library hall door was open and it was empty. There was nobody inside because they all had been executed.
Tout à l'heure, vous avez dit.
Earlier on, you said that you had watched these executions for quite a while, and that you returned back to your unit where you were sleeping. So when you left the execution site, were the executions still going on? And earlier on, you said that the executions had stopped only at 10 o'clock at night. So then you yourself, around what time did you leave the execution site?
Through my knowledge, it was clear that the event started from 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they were brought in. However, the execution took place at night and it lasted till about 10 p.m. And by that time I was so frightened, my body was shaking, and that's when I decided to run back home.
Est-ce que vous pourriez...
Can you assess with a bit more precision how long you remained hiding, observing these executions? Do you know approximately how much time went by?
Of course, at that time I did not wear any wristwatch, and I could give you only an estimate time. At that time, although it was dark, but we could recognize one another, and the execution lasted till 10 p.m. when it was fully dark, and then that's when I decided to run back home. And that was the truth, and I do not know what else to tell you.
Non, c'est très bien.
Fine, that's what we're asking you to tell, that is to say, to tell the truth. So, in your WRI, you said that you remained on site for about 1 hour. So does that correspond to your memories, or did you stay there longer?
I could not say for sure how long it was, because it happened a long time ago. But by the time I was running back home, they finished executing those people. You could imagine that my body was so shaking, as I was so frightened of witnessing the execution, and I was afraid that the executioners would spot us. Of course, I was afraid of losing my life as well.
Comment avez-vous...
How did you manage to come close to the execution site and not be spotted by the executioners who were about 10 meters away from you? How did you manage to hide?
President, witness, please hold on. And counsel for case in point, you have the floor.
I don't know if I misunderstood, but it appears to me that the witness said that he was about 30 meters away. Maybe I didn't understand the co-prosecutor's question well, but I did not hear 10 meters away. I heard about 30 meters away coming from the witness. So I object to the question if it relies on erroneous information. Co-prosecutor, I think the lawyer did not understand. I said a few tens of meters, so 30 meters could be a few tens of meters. So witness, how did you manage to hide and not to be seen by the executioners?
President, witness, please hold on, and Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please rephrase your question. The witness already testified that this morning he was 30 meters away from the execution site. So the distance of 30 meters and 10 meters is rather a large one.
Monsieur.
Mr. President, let me please be specific again. I said a few tens of meters, a few dozen meters. So that could mean, therefore, 30 meters. So the question was not focused on the distance. It was focused more on how did the witness and his friend manage to come close to that place without being seen. Did they hide in bushes? Did they crouch? How did they manage?
When I discreetly looked at what happened, actually I was hiding behind a palm tree while my friend was hiding behind a tamarind tree, and we were about 30 meters away from the execution site. We were frightened when we were there, discreetly taking a look at what happened before our eyes. We actually crawled to the site where we discreetly looked at what happened. We didn't simply walk there. And that's what happened, and I'm telling the truth.
Was there a ditch along the pagoda wall that maybe you used to come close to the execution site?
I did not go very close to the execution site. I was at about 30 meters away, and there was a canal along the fence of the pagoda, and that's where I was watching what happened, and the people were killed, and some of them were placed also in that canal.
So, with regard to the main entrance to Waksa, can you tell us where these executions took place and where this canal was located in relation to the main entrance? So, if you look at the pagoda and you look at the entrance, how far and in which direction was the execution site?
It was to the east of the pagoda's fence. There was a canal along the fence, and the canal was 3 meters wide.
D'où vous étiez posté,
So, from the place where you were stationed, or where you were hiding, behind the palm tree, did you have good visibility on the execution site? Could you see the executioners and the victims at the same time? And was the place lit?
Yes, there was. They used this gas mantle to light up the scene. Although I was 30 meters away, I could see it clearly. I was so frightened, and a while after we decided to crawl back and then ran back home.
And could you also hear from where you were what the executioners were saying? Could you also obviously hear the cries or what the victims were saying?
Yes, I heard them cry and I heard them scream. And as I stated earlier, that was the reason that drove me to have a look. We crawled, we bent our head, and we tried to see what happened. And of course, I saw the executioners.
est-ce que
And did these executioners ask questions to the victims before executing them?
They only asked her at the beginning. They accused those people of a June person. They did not use the word Vietnamese, but they used the word June. And each of them was walked by a separate group, and then they were executed one by one. Although I was 30 meters away, I could see the event unfolding clearly.
Did the executioners only accuse these people of being Yuan, or did they ask them if they were Yuan?
They did not ask many questions. They only asked a few words, and then I heard the beating, and then I heard the screaming, and I myself was very scared. My body was trembling, and after that I ran back home.
parce que vous aviez
So, since you were trembling, and since you were so afraid, did you manage to find the strength to watch all of the executions when you were hiding, or did you somehow turned away so that you wouldn't be witnessing this horrible event?
I was there until the execution died down. Then I bent my head, I crawled back, and then I ran back to the cooperative.
ញឿរំដំ
My body was trembling, and that night I could not sleep till morning.
បាទ
Do you remember having seen that all of the people who had been brought to the execution site were executed, or did you see one or several of these people being separated from the people who were executed and therefore spared?
I did not see that. As I said later on, everything was quiet and nobody was let out to go anywhere. As I stated in the morning, I went there again to see what happened, and the library hall was empty and the door was ajar. And as I said, the day before, I saw people were locked up in that library hall. I saw their faces, I saw their hands. And later on that night, I refer to the previous night, I saw the screaming, and then I decided to see what happened. President Witness, you has been reminded several times that you should limit your response to the questions rather than to provide a lengthy description which was not necessary and which would make you tired. You should prepare yourself to respond to many more questions during the period of your testimony.
So when you were observing the execution site, did you hear victims saying that they were Chinese and not Vietnamese?
No, I did not hear that. I only heard the word Jews used, but I did not hear anything in relation to Chinese.
Based on what you know, and after these executions at the Ksa Pagoda, in your village and in your commune, or even in your district, Chikreng, were there still people of Vietnamese origin, or had they all disappeared?
They disappeared and never returned. They were all executed. No one was spared. And the names of those whom I knew never returned as well. They were all killed in that pit.
Est-ce que cela veut dire que les enfants
Does that mean that children and babies were also executed? Did you see children and babies being executed? And if yes, how were they executed?
Answer. I want to tell the court that the legs, both legs of the baby or children were held and they were held upside down, and the babies and children were smashed against the coconut trees.
Et pour les enfants un peu plus grands,
How about older children? Were they also killed with bamboo clubs, or they were also killed by having them smashed against coconut trees?
Answer. For some older babies or children, they would be killed by the bamboo clubs. As for toddlers, they were held upside down by their legs and smashed against the coconut trees. 5-year-old or 6-year-old children were smashed with the bamboo clubs.
est-ce que vous avez jamais entendu
Did you ever hear in the village any soldiers or Khmer Rouge cadres or members of your mobile unit say that those children and babies of Vietnamese origin were a threat to the authorities?
Answer. I do not know on this particular point.
qui, à l'époque, était le chef?
During the period in question, what is the name of the chief of Yin village? Do you remember that name?
I knew the name of the village chief at that time. His name was Deng or Kadang.
ស្លាប់បាត់ហើយ
This village chief passed away already.
Est-ce qu'il y avait également un autre cadre qui s'appelait?
Was there another cadre called Soy or Sai from Yin village in Sengvoy commune?
Answer. There was a person by the name Soy back then who was the deputy chief. Deng was the chief of the village and Soy was the deputy chief. They are all deceased.
ស្លាប់អស់ហើយ
They are all deceased.
Est-ce que vous avez jamais entendu Dong?
Did you ever hear Don or Soy make any remarks regarding instructions they may have received to assemble the Vietnamese in the Sak Pagoda?
Answer. There was a village chief at that time. I am not quite sure. Everyone was aware of that matter. For me, I was instructed to go this and there, and I did not know for sure what happening, but execution actually took place, as I said.
Vous avez parlé donc des...
You mentioned the manner in which people were executed, and you spoke specifically of bamboo clubs used to kill particularly adults and children of a certain age. They were struck with such clubs. Were there any people who were disemboweled and whose gallbladders were extracted? Can you provide any explanations on that?
Bad.
Answer. The grand or daughter of Ye Ma abdomen was cut open and the gallbladder was removed from her. That is the gallbladder of Janta, and the gallbladder was hung on the coconut tree leaf.
ប្រមាត់ច្រើនណាគ្នា
There were quite numbers of gallbladders, and I did not know how many people abdomen were cut open and their gallbladders were removed. Actually, the gallbladders of the unmarried women were removed.
Est-ce que vous-même, le soir,
In the evening of those executions, did you yourself see anyone extracting gallbladders from victims who had been disemboweled? Or you only saw those gallbladders the following morning when you returned to the scene?
Answer. I saw the gallbladders were hung on the coconut tree's leaf wall. From my estimation, there were many gallbladders which were removed out of quite numbers of people.
ma question était de savoir si vous les...
My question whether you saw those suspended or hung gallbladders the evening following those executions, or you saw them hung on the coconut trees only the next day in the morning when you returned to the scene of those crimes.
Answer. After the execution, I went to that execution site and I could see the gallbladders.
Et avez-vous une idée des motifs qui...
Do you have an idea as to the reasons why the executioners extracted the gallbladders of those victims? Did you hear anything on the subject? Was there any symbolism behind such practices?
Answer. I have no idea why they did such thing. In fact, as I said, I saw gallbladders. Whether the gallbladders were used for any purposes, I cannot tell you. President, it is now the break time and the chamber will take a short break from now until 3 p.m. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break time in the waiting room, and please invite him back to the witness stand in the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.